In Revelation 7, 9 and 10, the writer of the book of Revelation, he sees a vision, and he reports as follows. After this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from every tribe and people and languages. They were standing before the throne of God and before the Lamb. They were clothed with white robes, and they had palm branches in their hands. And they were crying with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." Now, when we look at these two verses, we find that this great multitude of people from every nation, all tribes, and all languages, they are doing two things. First of all, they are worshiping God and God's Son, Jesus Christ, the Lamb. We find this in verse 9. Now, this is both a vision of what the church in its essence is. That the church in principle is a community of the people of God that includes different people groups. But this vision is not just a description of what the church is. It is also a prediction and a promise of what the church will be. And this prediction and promise is being fulfilled right before our eyes. Over the last 100 years or so, the growth of Christianity in the majority world has been nothing short of spectacular and phenomenal. In 1900, about 80% of the world's Christians were in the West, while less than 20% of Christianity or Christians were in the rest of the world, what we call the majority world. But today, 125 years later, today almost 70% of Christians in the world are from the majority world. There are more and more people from more nations, from more tribes and more languages who are putting their faith in Jesus Christ more than ever before in the history of the world and of the church. Take, for example, my own people group, the Nagas. I come from one of the smallest states in India. It's called Nagaland. We comprise about 17 different tribes and we speak about 20 different languages. We were headhunters who were living in darkness. But about 150 years ago, Christianity came to Nagaland through the American missionaries. And over the past 150 years or so, Nagas converted en masse to Christianity. Nagas put their faith in Christ. And today, almost 99% of Nagas, they self-identify as Christians. They call themselves Christians. And most of them are Baptists. Nagas, we have nothing in worldly terms. No technological, military, financial, or political power when we compare ourselves to other people. But we have received the gospel and we have come to worship before the throne of the true and living God and before His Lamb, Jesus Christ. We have come to worship God. But what John sees the people doing in this passage, it is not just worship, it is also witness. And verse 10 says, "And they are crying out with a loud voice, 'Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb.'" Yes, they are singing the song of salvation, but they are also, in their singing, they are also declaring and sharing the message of salvation. Their song of worship is also their song of witness. Worship of God is always tied with witness for God. Veneration always results in mission. This is also happening in world Christianity. For many centuries, mission was unidirectional or cross-cultural, from the West to the rest. And that was necessary and appropriate for its time. But what is happening today is this. Mission is becoming multi-directional and intercultural, from everywhere to everywhere. Mission movements are emanating and radiating from multiple centers across the world. That is what God is doing. And although our financial resources are terribly scarce and limited, churches and Christians in the majority world, we are moving out in mission. Take, for example, my own local church. It's a small church when we compare to the other Naga churches. We have only about 1,000 members. I know that's big for some people, but it's small by Naga standards. About 1,000 members. But our church, we devote 1/3 of our budget to mission, and we support 30 full-time missionaries. This is just an example of countless churches and Christians in the majority world who are increasingly getting involved in mission. But the truth is, and whatever it is, the mission of God cannot be fulfilled by one party alone or by one part of the globe alone, not by the global north alone or by the global south alone, not by the west alone or by the rest of the world alone. Mission is about the whole church taking the whole gospel to the whole world. And this is also where BMS comes in. If the center of gravity of Christianity has shifted to the majority world, and if God's Spirit is moving in the majority world as it is, then we must also shift. And BMS also wants to shift and move with the majority world or into world Christianity to support the majority church, the majority world church in its mission endeavors. And today, we want to unabashedly ask you to continue to support BMS World Mission as you have been doing. And we want you to support BMS in at least 4 ways as we seek to support the majority world church in its mission. Number 1, pray for BMS as you have been doing. Number 2, volunteer for BMS as a BMS champion in your own local church. Number 3, you can become a speaker for BMS and go to UK churches talking about the work of BMS and world Christianity. And number 4, you can, if God leads you to, you can give to BMS and support the work of BMS and the work of mission in the majority world. Thank you, and may God bless you.